Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. We are talking today about submission of the bankruptcy petition. This is a lecture 2. Before speaking about submission of the bankruptcy petition, we talked about difference between insolvency and bankruptcy. Subject 1, Subject 2, characteristics of bankruptcy system. Subject 3, compensation and preventive reorganization. Only Section 1, contractual compensation. Before speaking about the main subject, we are talking about legal terminologies of submission of bankruptcy petition. First, submission of the bankruptcy petition, تقديم طلب الإفلاس. 2. Petitioner of bankruptcy, مقدم طلب الإفلاس. 3. Trade books الدفاتر التجارية. 4. Copy of last balance sheet account، نسخة من حساب الميزانية العمومية الأخير. 4. non-domicile محل إقامة معلوم. commercial domicile موطن تجاري. non-domicile and commercial domicile. The competent court المحكمة المختصة. residence of the debtor محل إقامة المدين مسكنه. Again, submission of the bankruptcy petition تقديم طلب الإفلاس. Petitioner of bankruptcy مقدم طلب الإفلاس. Trade books الدفاتر التجارية. Copy of last balance sheet account، نسخة من حساب الميزانية العمومية الأخير. non-domicile محل إقامة معلوم. commercial domicile موطن تجاري. The competent court المحكمة المختصة. residence of the debtor محل إقامة المدين أو مسكنه. Now, we are talking about the main subject, submission of the bankruptcy petition. We are talking about submission of the debtor and submission of the creditor. We are talking about submission of the debtor 1, submission of the creditor 2. 1. Submission of the debtor. If the debtor is a petitioner of bankruptcy. If the debtor is a petitioner of bankruptcy. لو اللي هيقدم طلب الإفلاس ده المدين. The debtor submit causes of stop paying his petition. The debtor must submit causes of stop paying his petition, must including several documents. علشان خاطر المدين يقدر يقدم طلب الإفلاس في مجموعة من الوثائق لازم يقدمها. 1. His trade books. 2. Copy of last balance sheet account. 3. The profit and loss account. 4. The cash amounts deposited in his name in any bank, whether in Egypt or abroad. 5. List of his creditors and debtors. 6. All these documents must be dated and signed by the debtor. يبقى submission of the debtor. If the debtor equal a petitioner of bankruptcy, the debtor must submit causes of stop paying. لازم يقدم أسباب توقفه عن الدفع. إيه السبب في توقفه عن الدفع؟ And his petition must be included several documents such as his trade books, copy of last balance sheet account, profit and loss account, the cash amounts deposited in his name in any bank, whether in Egypt or abroad, his creditors and debtors, and all these documents must be dated and signed by the debtor. This is the first submission of the debtor. Submission of the creditor. If the creditor is a petitioner, if the creditor now is a petitioner for a bankruptcy, the creditor must submit that the commercial debt should be due and free of any litigation. First, if the creditor is a petitioner, the petitioner equal creditor. Okay? The creditor must submit that the commercial debt should be due and free of any litigation. This first. لازم يقول ان الدين التجاري بتاعه ده خالي من اي مشكلة، خالي من اي نزاع الى غير ذلك. 2. The creditor must submit that the debtor can't pay his debt in due time. Stop paying. عشان يقدر يقدم طلب الإفلاس لازم يثبت إن المدين بتاعه ما قدرش يدفع ديونه في الوقت المستحق. Okay, الوقت المستحق after 6 months, after 7 months, 8 months, something like that. 3. The creditor can submit the petition of bankruptcy regardless the amount of the debt. The creditor can submit the petition of bankruptcy regardless the amount of the debt. After that, the creditor can submit the petition of bankruptcy if the debtor hasn't a known domicile in Egypt. The creditor can submit the petition of bankruptcy if the debtor hasn't a known domicile in Egypt. لا يقدر يقدم طلب الإفلاس طالما إني كمان مش معلوم موطن المدين. The petition of the creditor may request from the court to take any necessary conservative measures. Finally, the petition of bankruptcy will be accompanied by the deposit of thousands Egyptian pounds to cover the expenses of establishing the bankruptcy. We talk now about submission of the debtors, submission of the creditors, and third, submission of the debtors. The debtor, if the debtor is a petitioner of bankruptcy, the debtor submit causes of stop paying. His petition must be included several documents like his trade books, copy of last balance sheet account, the profit and loss account, the cash amounts deposited in his name in any bank, whether in Egypt or abroad, his creditors and debtors. All these documents must be dated and signed by the debtor. This is the first submission of the debtor. Second, submission of the creditor. If the creditor is a petitioner for a bankruptcy, the creditor must submit that the commercial debt should be due and free of any litigation. 2. The creditor must submit that the debtor can't pay his debt in due time, stop paying. The debtor can't pay his debt for a creditor in due time. The creditor can submit the petition of bankruptcy regardless the amount of the debt. The creditor can submit the petition of bankruptcy if the debtor hasn't known domicile in Egypt. The petition of creditors may request from the court to take any necessary conservative measures. Finally, the petition of bankruptcy will be accompanied by the deposit deposit of 1,000 Egyptian pounds to cover the expenses of establishing the bankruptcy. Okay, we have a good question. To which court the petition should be submitted? ايه هي المحكمة اللي هتقدم لها الطلب؟ or what the competent court؟ ايه هي المحكمة المختصة؟ what the competent court؟ The competent court is the court of commercial domicile of the debtor. هي المحكمة الموطن التجاري المين للمدين. Okay, like main of office, like branch, like agency. If we don't have the commercial domicile، احنا ما عندناش موطن تجاري للمدينة، هيحصل ايه؟ The competent court will be the court of residence of the debtor or general domicile. يا اما محل سكن المواطن او السكن العام. يبقى this question talked about to which court the petition should be submitted. The competent court is the court of commercial domicile of the debtor, like main of office, like branch, like agency. If we don't have the commercial domicile of the debtor, the competent court will be the court of residence of the debtor or general domicile. Now, we talked about 3 basic points. First point, again, submission of the debtor. Second, submission of the creditor. Third, to which court the petition should be submitted. بسرعة كده اختصار. Submission of the debtors. The debtor must be included or must be submitted. لازم يقدم ايه؟ several documents like a trade book, copy of last balance, cash amounts deposited in his name in any bank, whether in Egypt or abroad, his creditors and debtors, and this in the final. All these documents must be signed by the debtor. Submission of the creditors, we have many points under this point. The creditor must be submitted. The commercial debt shall be due and free of any litigation. The creditor must submit that the debtor can't pay his debt in due time. The creditor can submit the petition of bankruptcy if the debtor has not commercial domicile in Egypt and residence in Egypt. The petition of bankruptcy will be accompanied by the deposit of 1,000 Egyptian pounds to cover the expenses of establishing the bankruptcy. And the final, a good question, to which court the petition should be submitted. The competent court first is the court of commercial domicile of the debtor. If we don't have commercial domicile of the debtor, what can we do? We will move to the second court. It's residence of the debtor. Residence of the debtor. The competent court will be the court of residence of the debtor or general domicile. This subject is finished. This subject is very important. We talked about legal terminologies and this subject and main subject. to be easy for you. وأتمنى لكم إن شاء الله محاضرة جيدة تستطيعون فهمها بأمر الله. شكرا.